Is the microphone working? Yes, it is. The microphone is in fact working. So let's get everything working. Browser is not browsing. So why? Cool. There we go. I'll make it that size for now. Oh, I got nuggies! I have nuggies in the air fryer. Hold up, I gotta get my nuggies. Damn, forgot about nuggies. Okay, I'm actually gonna leave the nuggies in the air fryer for a little bit more. They're not crispy enough. The nuggies are not crispy enough. That's the big O problem. So I'm gonna go for 2 hours. However, after that 2 hours, I gotta like take a shower and go immediately to sleep because I have something to get to tomorrow. I have somewhere to go on a Sunday. Believe it or not. It's gonna be the first time in a long while that I need to go somewhere on a Sunday. So where was I? Where was I? Animation and rigging. Being set. Let's armatures. Let's learn about armatures. Introduction. An armature in Blender can be thought of similar as an armature of a real skeleton, and it's just like a real skeleton. An armature can consist of many bones. These bones can be moved around, and anything that they are attached to or associated with will move and deform in a similar way. Armature is a type of object used for rigging. A rig is the controls and strings that move a marionette, puppet. Armature objects borrows many ideas from real-world skeletons. Your first armature. In order to see what we are talking about, let's try and add the default armature in Blender. Note that armature editing details are explained in the armature editing section. Open a default scene, then delete all objects in the scene. Make sure the cursor in the world origin with Shift C. Make sure the cursor is in the world origin with Shift C. Press numpad 1 to see the world in front view. Add a single bone, add armature. You can do Control A, armature. Press numpad period to see the armature in its maximum zoom. As you can see, an armature is like any other object type in Blender. It has an origin, a position, a rotation, and a scale factor. It has an object data block that can be edited in edit mode. It can be linked to other scenes, and the same armature data can be reused on multiple objects. All animation you do in object mode is only working on the whole object, not the armature's bones. Use the pose mode to do this. Pose mode you can go into by selecting the armature and then doing Control Tab to switch from object mode into pose mode with the armature selected. So you can do that way. Control Tab. As armatures are designed to be posed either for a static or animated scene, they have a specific date. They have a specific state called rest position. This is the armature's default shape in the default position rotation scale of its bones, as set in edit mode. In edit mode, you may always see your armature in rest position, whereas in object mode and pose mode, you usually get the current pose of the armature, unless you enable the rest position button of the armature panel. Okay. Bones. Introduction. Much like in real-life skeletons, bones are the building blocks of armatures. Each bone has a resting position, orientation, and length, and all of these can be changed while posing or animating. You can change the way bones are displayed in the armature's viewport display settings. Classification. Bones can be classified into two types depending on their deformed setting. Deforming bones. Bones that have the deformed setting enabled will drag vertices along with them. For example, you could have a bone in a character's upper arm and another in the lower arm, and then rotate and flex the arm by transforming these bones. Control bones. Bones that have the deformed setting disabled do not drag any vertices along. Instead, they are typically used to control other bones. A common use case is inverse kinematics. Rotating the above two arm bones manually is a bit of a pain, so instead you can add a control bone and configure the arm bones to automatically orient themselves towards it. This way you can simply position the control bone where the character's hand should be, which is much easier. Bone collections. Bone collections group the bones of an armature into named collections. The armature is the owner of these collections, so they are available in all modes. Bone collections are identified by their name, which are unique with the armatures. Bone collections can be nested inside other bone collections to create an organized hierarchy for complex rigs. In the text below, collection is understood to refer to bone collection. Scene collections are not described here. Bone collections can be managed via the armature and bone property panels. Visibility. Bone collections can be shown and hidden via the list in the armature properties, as well as via the list in the bone properties. Bone visibility is determined by the visibility of its collection, its own solo and hidden properties. If the bone itself is marked as hidden, it is invisible regardless of the bone collections. If a parent collection is hidden, child collections will also be hidden. Same is true for soloed collections. A bone is visible when it is contained in any visible collection. If a collection is soloed, it will be visible regardless of the collection's hidden property. A bone that is not assigned to any bone collection is visible. Otherwise, it would be impossible to select it and assign it to a collection. Library overrides. Bone collections can be added using library overrides. For this to work, both the armature object and the armature itself need to be overridden. Limitations. There are a few limitations when it comes to bone collections and overrides. Only bone collections that are local to the current blend file can be edited. Bone collections that already exist on the linked-in armature are read-only, and only their visibility can be toggled. Those visibility changes won't be saved though. Custom properties of overridden bone collections cannot be edited in the Properties panel. Python access is fine. This is just the current limitation of Blender UI code. How it works. Bone collections added via overrides are anchored to the preceding collections by name. Here is an example. The italic collections are defined on the linked armature in armature.blend. The bold ones are added by overrides in armature shot47.blend. FK controls, IK controls, left pinky anchored to IK controls, right pinky anchored to left pinky. Now if the armature in armature blend gets updated with two more collections, it might look like this. FK controls, IK controls, face detail controls. After reloading armature shot47.blend, it will look like this. FK controls, IK controls, left pinky anchored to IK controls, right pinky still anchored to left pinky, face detail controls. Some history. Bone collections were introduced in Blender 4.0 as replacement for armature layers and bone groups. Bone collections are owned by the armature, so they are available in all modes. To contrast, bone groups are stored on the object's pose and thus were not available in armature edit mode. Bone structure. They have three elements: the start joint named root or head, the body itself, and the end joint named tip or tail. With the default armature in edit mode, you can select the root and the tip and move them as you do with mesh vertices. Both root and tip, the joints, define the bone by their respective position. They also have a radius property, only useful for the envelope deformation method. See below. Oh, hold on. I am going to get my nuggies. It will be great. I will get my nuggies and it'll be delicious. Okay. Okay. Roll. Activating the axes checkbox will show local axes for each bone's tip. The y-axis is always aligned along the bone, oriented from root to tip. This is the roll axis of the bones. Bone's influence. Basically, a bone controls a geometry when vertices follow the bone. This is like how the muscle and skin of your finger follow your finger bone when you move a finger. To do this, you have to define the strength of influence a bone has on a certain vertex. The simplest way is to have each bone affecting those parts of the geometry that are within a given range from it. This is called the envelope technique because each bone can control only the geometry enveloped by its own influence area. If a bone is visualized as envelope in edit mode, and in pose mode you can see the area of influence, which depends on the distance property and the root's radius and the tip's radius. All these influence parameters are further detailed in the skinning pages. Oh man. Creeper. Aw man. So we back in the mine, got my pickup swinging from side to side, side to side. This task a grueling one, hope to find some diamonds tonight, diamonds tonight. I'm gonna quickly get myself something to drink. Drink drunk. This time it's gonna be grape juice. And yes, I always drink out of the 2-quart bottle. Okay. Mesh edit mode tools. Select remove. Select box. Select geometry by dragging a box. Select circle, select geometry by dragging a circle. Select lasso, select geometry by drawing a lasso. Cursor, change the location of 3D cursor. Move, translation tool. Rotate, rotation tool. Scale, scale tool. Scale cage, change the scale of an object by controlling its cage. Transform, tool to adjust the object's translation, rotations, and scale. Annotate, draw freehand annotation. Annotate line, draw straight line annotation. Annotate polygon, draw a polygon annotation. Annotate eraser, erase previously drawn annotation. Measure, measure distance in a scene. Roll, rotates a bone around its y-axis. Bone size, extrude, creates a new bone connected to the last selected joint. Extrude to cursor, creates a new bone between the last selected joint and the mouse's position. Tool settings. See x-axis mirror pose mode. Selecting bones. You can select and edit bones of armatures in edit mode and in pose mode. Here we will see how to select bones in edit mode. Selecting bones in pose mode is similar to selecting in edit mode, with a few specific differences that will be detailed in the posing part. Similar to vertex/edge selection in meshes, there are two ways to select whole bones in edit mode. One, directly by selecting the bone's body. Two, selecting both of its joints, the root and the tip. This is an important point to understand because selecting bones joints only might lead to non-obvious behavior. With respect to which bone you actually select, note that unlike the mesh display type, the armature display type has no effect on selection behavior. In other words, you can select a bone's joint or body the same way regardless of the bone visualization chosen. Selecting bone joints. To select bone joints, you have the standard selection methods. Inverse selection. As stated above, you have to remember that these selection tools are for bone joints only, not bones' bodies. For example, the inverse selection option, Control-I, inverts the selection of bones joints, not of bones. See inverse selection. Remember that bone is selected only if bone. Remember that a bone is selected only if its joints are selected. So, when the selected status of bones joints is inverted, a new set of bones is selected. Okay, now that I am not 2 shots of whiskey, these images make sense now. So first you have 1, 2, 3, 4 joints selected, which means 2 bones are selected. But there are 3 bones. Sorry, there are 3 joints that are not selected. That one, and that one. So when you do, I just hit my. I just hit my microphone. So how do I? Alt left arrow. Alt left arrow. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4 joints are selected, but then all 4 of those joints are no longer selected, and instead these 3 joints are selected. Which now, my brain finally makes sense of. Cool, 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 cool. I don't think it's smart to read a manual when you have alcohol in your system. I just don't think that's the case. I tried it. Meh. Selecting connected bone joints. Another example is when you select the root of a bone connected to its parent, you also implicitly select the tip of its parent, and vice versa. Remember that when selecting bones joints, the tip of the parent bone is the same thing as the root of its children bones. Selecting bones. By clicking on a bone's body, you will select it, and hence you will implicitly select its root and tip. Using shift-click, you can add / remove from the selection. You also have some advanced selection options based on their relations. Pick shortest path, Control-click. Selects the path from the active bone to the bone under the map. Okay. So let's do this. So tab, Control-click. Okay. Control-click. 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 Wonderful. Ah. Fascinating. Fascinating. Ah. Okay, that's because the the feet aren't the children of the legs. Should they be? Should the feet be children to the leg? I don't know. I honestly do not know. Okay. All of my nuggies are eaten. Well, there's that. Okay. Deselecting connected bones. There is a subtlety that there is a subtlety regarding connected bones. When you have several connected bones selected, if you deselect one bone, its tip will be deselected, but not its root. If it is also the tip of another selected bone, when you have several connected bones selected, if you deselect one bone, its tip will be deselected, but not its root, if it is also the tip of another selected bone. To understand this, look at figure bone deselected with a deselected in a selected chain. After shift clicking bone 3. Bone 3's tip, which is the same as bone 4's root, is deselected. Bone is bone 3's parent, therefore bone 3 Bone three's root is the same as tip of bone. Since bone is selected, its tip is selected. Thus, the root of bone 3 remains selected. Select mirror. Mode, edit mode. Menu, select mirror. Shortcut, Shift Control M. Flip the selection from one side to another. More/less. Mode, edit mode. Menu, select more/less. More, control numpad plus. Less, control numpad minus. Contrast selection, people select bones at the boundaries of each selection region. So control numpad plus. Okay. So if I select this and I do control plus 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 plus, I can then select everything in the chain, but if I select the whole chain, I can't do less now for some reason. Wait, when I do... Oh, it goes in both directions. I don't understand why. Wonderful. Sorry, I'm fascinated by the stuff that just like was collecting on the bottom of the bottle for some reason. More or less. Wonderful. Select link. Mode, edit mode. Select link. Control L. Selects all the bones in the chain which the active last selected bone belongs to. Ah. Selects all bones connected to the active bone, even if they branch off from the current bone. Linked bones selected. Single bone collector. A single selected bone, its whole chain selected with link. Select similar. Mode, edit mode. Menu, select similar. Shortcut Shift G. Children extends the selection to all hierarchical descendant bones. Immediate children extends the selection of all direct child bones. Sibling selects bones that have the same parent as the active bone. Length selects bones with a similar bone length under the specific threshold. Direction Y-axis. Select bones aligned on the Y-axis along the bone's length. Prefix. Select bones with matching name prefix separated by period. Suffix. Select bones with matching name suffix separated by period. Bone collection. Select bones that share one or more bone collections with the active bone. Color. Select bones that have the same color as the active bone. Shape. Select bones using the same shape object in pose mode. Select pattern. Mode. Pose and armature edit modes. Menu. Select pattern. Select bones by name. See object select pattern for details. Parent child. Parent open bracket, child close bracket. You can deselect the active bones and select its immediate parent or its children. Okay, so if I go that interesting. So if I hold shift, I can then select interesting. Extend parent, shift, open bracket, extends child, shift, close bracket. Similar to parent child, but keeps the active bone in the selection. Wonderful. Editing bones. Wonderful. Oh boy. Introduction, add menu, locking bones, transform, scale radius, scale envelope distance, align bones, bone roll, recalculate roll, set roll, clear roll, extrude, mouse clicks, duplicate, fill between joints, split, separate bones, subdivide, switch directions, symmetrize, name it, naming conventions, auto name, flip names, parenting, bone collections, properties, delete, bones, dissolve. Introduction. As with any other object, you edit your armature in Edit Mode tab. The set of bone editing tools is quite similar to the one of The set of bone editing tools is quite similar to the one for mesh editing. One important thing to understand about armature editing is that you edit the rest position of your armature, i.e. its default state. An armature in its rest position has all bones with no rotation and scaled to 1 in their own local space. The different poses you might create afterwards are based on this rest position. So if you modify it in edit mode, all the poses already exist will all the poses already existing will also be modified. Thus, you should, in general, be sure that your armature is definitive before starting to skin and pose it. Please note that the same tools work on bones and joints, while others work on bones themselves. Be careful not to get confused. Add menu, mode, edit mode, menu, add, shortcut, Shift A. In 3D viewport, Shift A to add a new bone to your arm. This bone will be of 1 unit of length, oriented towards the global Z axis, with its root placed at the 3D cursor position, with no relationship to any other bone of the armature. Locking bones. You can prevent a bone from being transformed in edit mode in several ways. All bones can be locked clicking on the lock checkbox of their transform panel in the Bones tab. Press Shift W, toggle bone options locked. Select armature bone settings, toggle a setting. If the root of a locked bone is connected to the tip of an unlocked bone, it will not be locked, i.e. you will be able to move it to your liking. This means that in a chain of connected bones, when you lock one bone, you only really lock its tip. With unconnected bones, the locking is effective on both joints of the bone. Wonderful. Transform. We will not detail here the various transforms of bones, nor things like axis locking, pivot joints, and so on, as they are common to most object editing, and already described in the mesh section. The same goes for mirroring, as it is nearly the same as with mesh editing. Just keep in mind that bones, roots, and tips behave more or less like meshes vertices, and bones themselves act like edges in a mesh. As you know, bones can have two types of relationships. They can be parented and, in addition, connected. Parented bones behave in edit mode exactly as if they have no relations. they can be moved, rotated, scaled, etc., without affecting their descendants. However, connected bones must always have parents' tips connected to child's roots. So by transforming a bone, you will affect all its connected parent children's siblings. While with other transformed tools, the local axis means the object's axis. Here they are bones' own axis. Here they are the bone's own axis. When you lock to a local axis by pressing the relevant key twice, the constraint is applied along the selected bone's local axis, not the armature object's axis. Finally, you can edit in the transform panel in the sidebar region the positions and radius of both joints of the active selected bone, as well as its roll rotation. Scale radius. Mode edit mode menu armature transform scale radius shortcut Alt S. You can alter the radius that a bone has by selecting the head, body, or tail of a bone, and then press Alt S, and move the mouse left or right. If the body is selected, the mean radius will be scaled. And as usual with connected bones, you scale at the same time the radius of the parent's tip and of the children's roots. You can also alter the bone radius by selecting the tail or head of the bone you wish to alter. Then navigate to Properties Bone Deform Radius section and entering new values for the tail and head number field. Bone scale and scale radius comparison. Alt S. Alt S. I just wished I could actually see the radius. Note that when you resize a bone, either by directly scaling it or by moving one of its joints, Blender automatically adjusts the end radii of its envelope proportionately to the size of the modification. Therefore, it is advisable to place all of the bones first and only then edit their properties. Scale envelope distance. Mode, edit mode, and pose mode. Menu, armature transform scale envelope distance. Shortcut, Control Alt S. You can alter the size of the bone envelope volume by clicking on the body of the bone you want to alter. Control Alt S, then drag your mouse left or right to the envelope volume. Left or right, and bone envelope volume will alter accordingly. You can also alter the bone envelope volume by selecting the bone you wish to alter and then navigate to Properties Bone Deform Envelope Distance, then enter a new value into it. After altering the bone envelope volume does not alter the size of the bone, just the range within which it can influence the vertices of child objects. Cool. An envelope scaling example. Size scaling example. Align bones. Mode, edit mode. Menu, armature transform align bones. Shortcut, Control Alt A. Rotates the selected bones to achieve the same orientation as the active one. Okay. Bone roll. Bone roll. Bone roll. Okay. So I had completed up to bone roll, which is not even a quarter of the way done. But I'll continue. I'll continue tomorrow. It's yesterday after work I did one. Right now I did another 1 hour. I will do a longer stream tomorrow. I swear I will. I don't want to get burnt out. Even a single hour is still a good amount of time when you're reading a manual. It's not awful. But anyway, I need to take a shower. I have something to do in the morning. Everything will be great after that. I will spend time streaming yet again. But I will see everybody then.